of Bedsides are getting a dramatic makeover in this video. I am not opposed to paint on furniture, but I do draw the line at sticky contact paper. These did have a great shape and they were completely solid timber. I loved the curved front, didn't necessarily love the plastic bedazzled handles, but all of this can be changed. Stick around if you want to see exactly what I do step by step. I started by removing the horrendous contact paper that was on these, which actually revealed another layer of paint which I was going to have to scrape through. So I removed the little bedazzled handles and did not keep these. These were very cheap and nasty, literally plastic and some funky little jewels. So they went straight in the bin. And then I moved on to carbide scraping. Now, yes, you could absolutely use a chemical-based stripper to remove the paint if you prefer to do that. However, I prefer to use chemical-based stripping when it's absolutely necessary and there is no other alternative. Carbide scraping is fast and effective, and I just find that it saves me a lot of time. I'm cutting through 2 layers of paint here and a layer of varnish all the way down nearly to raw timber. So when I come back over to sand, it's not going to take me that much time. I followed the same process with the feet. I carbide scraped them when they were on the bedside. Then I removed them so that I could give everything a thorough clean down. It's really important before you start sanding a piece that you give it a thorough clean, and that's because dirt, grease and grime sits on the surface of the piece. And even though I've gone and I've scraped most of the finish off, there is still places where some finish can remain. So it's always a good idea to get that off so that you're not sanding that dirt, grease and grime down further into the timber. Once everything was completely dry, I went over the entire piece with 120 grit sandpaper and then 240 grit sandpaper. Because a majority of the finish had been removed with that carbide blade, 120 grit sandpaper was sufficient to remove what was left. You've got to remember that the lower the grade of sandpaper, the coarser the grit. So if you use something like an 80 grit or a 60 grit sandpaper, yes, you may remove the finish very quickly, but you also create a lot of texture on the surface that you then have to spend a lot of time sanding out. So you've got to come back up the grades of sandpaper very slowly to get rid of all of that texture. To sand down the legs, I used a slightly unconventional technique. I secured my orbital sander into my vise and then I sanded each leg individually. Once everything was sanded down smooth and the dust removed, it was time to apply my stain, and I'm using a water-based stain by Cabot's. This one is in the colour Brazilian Roast and it's available from Bunnings in Australia. This stain has a really beautiful consistency. It's almost like a jelly, but it's easy to apply. I'm using a 4mm nap roller here, and then I'm just coming back over with an old rag to mop up any excess, and I did a total of 2 coats. To seal this set, I chose Fiddes Supreme Wax Polish in the colour Light. This one is an incredibly easy wax to apply. You can see here that I'm just using an old t-shirt. It comes in a range of colours and is a unique, environmentally friendly, toluene-free blend that doesn't have a strong smell, which I absolutely love. It does go on quite matte, but it can be buffed out to a high sheen level, which is what I wanted for this set. Not necessarily a gloss, but somewhere in the middle, somewhere in that satin finish range, which you can achieve within a couple of minutes. My final step on this flip was to install some new hardware, and I chose a matte black pool with a little bit of texture around the side to sit up against that chocolatey tone. And I didn't actually film it, but I painted the sides of the drawers and the internal part of the drawers with Porter's Paint's Aqua Satin in the color Aniseed. So the handles and the sides of the drawers and the internals just all worked really cohesively together. So guys, here's a quick reminder of where we were, and this is where we are now. Have a look at that timber grain. Isn't it stunning? The bowed front, it's really unique. The subtle sheen from the wax just highlights everything. And I actually love this deeper tone, and I don't normally like deeper toned timbers. But as always, I would love to know what you guys think. So jump in the comments and let me know, is this one a nail or a fail?